All right. Hello, everybody. This is the Realtors of the Fox Valley, Realtors Association of the Fox Valley, the first episode of the Government Affairs podcast. The RAFV GADCast might be the name of it eventually here. For the first episode here, we have a very special guest. And what we're going to be doing on here is we're going to try and raise awareness of what's happening at the state, local, federal level to let the members know what's happening and what they need to be aware of. So our guest for today is Julie Sullivan. She is the Senior Director of Legislative and Political Affairs with the Illinois REALTORS. Julie has been with the Illinois REALTORS for 30 years. She has a history and also political science degree from Eastern Illinois University, as well as a master's degree from Eastern as well. And as of 2020, she was named the third House Speaker, which is a great honor there in Springfield. Julie, welcome. And it is a huge honor to have you on as the first guest here.
Oh, thank you so much, John. It's my pleasure.
Awesome. Well, let's just get into it. So I guess it was 2 weeks ago now, you were down in Springfield for what was some would call definitely not a normal spring session, the last week of it at least, just due to the circumstances surrounding COVID, the precautions that were taken. Can you tell us a little about that, the successes and how that worked?
Well, you're exactly right, John. This year, in so many ways, has been so different and so challenging, and we've all had to really learn to deal with a whole new process of doing business. Since the executive orders and the stay-at-home, the last time the General Assembly had been in session until 2 weeks ago was March 5th. And because of the series of stay-at-home orders, and with a primary had happened as well, they had planned to take 1 week off, and they certainly didn't plan to take 2 months off. So they were back on Wednesday, May 20th, after a lot of discussion of how they could safely bring back the members of the General Assembly. We do not have a provision that allows for virtual meetings of any kind. Certainly never had been considered. So they had to work out a lot of details in order to bring them back into session. And they really needed to come back by the end of May in order to enact a state budget, for one thing, and then also to address a lot of those critical issues that had arisen because of the COVID-19 public health emergency, and also to look at the series of executive orders that the governor had issued and see if they needed to do any follow-up legislation or ratification in any of those orders. So the Illinois House, as everyone knows, has 118 members, and the chamber is pretty tightly packed, and so they knew they weren't going to be able to meet in the Illinois House chambers. So they opted to meet, for any of you who have come to Capitol Conference before, the Bank of Springfield, our Civic Center in Springfield, became the makeshift House chamber. And they set up a series of desks with the social distance apart, meeting those guidelines. And they moved the chambers there. They were still covered by the Illinois General Assembly website in terms of audio and video, so you could watch them. But that was where kind of the similarities, and it was very challenging for us as lobbyists. We could not, there weren't committee meetings where you could go and sit and testify. They were accepting written testimony only. And so that became very challenging, and accepting it in a little bit different format as well, where they put it on the homepage of the General Assembly website. So that was unusual. That's typically not the way it's done. Now the Senate, on the other hand, did meet in their chambers, but they, kind of like what Congress does, had members come to the floor only to vote, and then they went back to their offices. And the reason the Senate was able, I think, to meet in the Capitol building itself is that all of their offices are in the Capitol building within a couple floors of the Senate floor. So they did meet in that, again, but the rules in terms of the public being able to enter the building or testimony before committees just did not occur. So it was unique. I've been, as you said, I've been with the Realtors a long time. I have seen us meet in the old state capitol when the chambers were being renovated. I've seen them meet in the auditorium of the Howlett building, but now having them in the Civic Center is another new experience for sure. So we did have one member who stood up on the floor, a friend who stood up on the floor in the house of the convention center and asked if they could maybe put us on their iPhones and put us up to the camera to testify. I thought that probably wouldn't work very well. So, but we all kind of learned on the fly. And but they did meet and they did pass a lot of significant legislation.
Absolutely. I was going to say, given the circumstances, it sounds like they've passed quite a lot, and certainly when it comes to things like the budget, that absolutely crucial.
Yes.
So I guess in that kind of environment, Julie, what wins did we come away with, as the Illinois Realtors, in that spring session? Because, I have some inside knowledge on that, or I guess more than maybe some people listening. Yeah. But we did get some, and in that kind of environment, to come away with something positive has got to be just a huge get.
It is indeed, and I think it speaks again to our respect that we get in the General Assembly, and that comes from years of the same team working for the Realtors. We're acknowledged. I think people respect our reputation and our position on issues. We had to deal with a couple of pretty thorny issues where we disagreed with the approach to addressing those landlords, tenants, homeowners affected financially by the COVID-19 pandemic. There was, on one hand, there were some that felt we should have a very expansive bill dealing with every issue related to a landlord-tenant relationship, many of which were not COVID related, and many of which we had been fighting probably over 20 years. And then our approach was, let's focus on providing balanced relief to both landlords and tenants and homeowners that were truly affected by these circumstances that none of us ever felt would occur. Ultimately, no substantive legislation was approved, but the budget bill and the capital bill that reappropriated money from last year both included millions of dollars in assistance for those affected both by the pandemic and as well as going forward in terms of constructing more affordable housing and really focusing in on immediate things that we can do to address those issues.
Absolutely. Especially during these times, getting anything and, just immediate help to those that need it most has got to be just everybody's main focus.
Absolutely.
And that was.
And I think going forward, I think there's a lot of work still to be done, and we are encouraging that the legislature continue to look at incentive programs and to encourage the development of more affordable housing units throughout the state of Illinois, and that we continually look as a positive and incentive-based program rather than a punitive-based program. And I think there's a lot of people that agree with that. We're continuing our conversations with legislators, with the Housing Development Authority, and various other stakeholders in an effort to continue those positive discussions.
Excellent. I did see that in the budget that we'd be working with the Housing Authority on that.
Exactly.
That was great to see.
And the Illinois Realtors also has a committee that I staff, made up of really very engaged members from throughout the state of Illinois. And our task is on affordable housing and community involvement and how to make sure that brokers throughout the state are well-versed in the number of programs that are out there can do outreach all year long to members of our community that may need some assistance. We want to be the voice, and the source of knowledge that people can turn to on those type of assistance programs.
Excellent. Is there a link I can provide in the bio for this?
For the committee, or
for the committee?
When the committee report is done, we will have a lot of information. I think we're going to roll out the program probably in after the September board of directors. That will need to be ratified by them, and then watch for that. And I think there's some exciting things coming ahead.
Understood. Okay, I'm looking forward to that.
What I wanted to also mention, John, is that I know some people will be interested in is there were some changes to the property tax code that also were directly related to the COVID-19 situation. I know a lot of counties individually were looking at perhaps waiving penalties or late fees for that first installment of property taxes and some other relief measures of that nature. The General Assembly did decide to enact, still leaving the ultimate decision up to the local governments, but enacted a provision to say that you have the authority to go ahead and waive interest and penalties for that first installment. And then also tax sales can be delayed, so people aren't in fear that somehow if they miss a payment that their house would be put up under a tax sale provision. And then also there are certain homestead exemptions that you're required to apply for every year. For example, the senior freeze, and so they decided that for this tax year you would not have to reapply. So those are just things they could do immediately to address some property tax related concerns.
Excellent. Yeah, I know that is going to help a lot of people, and in the Fox Valley area, I have seen several counties that have deferred payments, and as well as interest rates and penalties.
Right, and I think all the local officials and state legislators were really aware, because many of them are homeowners themselves, and I think they were aware of just the anxiety a lot of people were feeling about that. So I think this is going to be very helpful to people and something that can be helpful immediately.
Absolutely. I think all of us were feeling anxiety going into that spring session, and to have as much come out of it that can really immediately help people is just great.
Right, right.
So speaking of September, Julie, what do you see as potential challenges for us in the Illinois Realtors when we return to session in the fall?
Yeah, well, it's going to be, we still have a lot of uncertainty. We don't know how long we will be under these different orders. Ultimately, we're hopeful that we don't have a secondary wave. Some have said that could occur, but we have the election coming up, and early voting will start in September. There were some changes to make it easier to vote by mail, for example, in the 2020 election. And some election authorities may be able to take advantage of a curbside voting mechanism, which is totally new for Illinois. But following the November 3rd election, the week after or so, we come back in. And the challenge, I think, for all of us is if we're going to have, in those 6 days of the fall session, a lot of issues that were stopped because of time constraints in the spring coming back. But right now, I would guess that it's going to be similar to the condensed spring session, in that they'll try to address those immediate concerns. And then in 2021 in January, begin again a regular session, as it were, because they have not scheduled any more than 6 days. But we found out in 4 days they can do a lot. So it will be something that we're going to just have to keep track of. Like I said, we're staying active over this time period with our allies in the real estate industry, as well as the financial industry, and reaching out to state agencies and keeping apprised of any rules that may come up or any new programs that need to be implemented as a result of some legislation that was passed.
Understood. Glad to, I know for sure that you guys are keeping busy down there. If people haven't seen, uh, we did a series of Capitol Conference at home videos due to the
Oh,
COVID-19 constraints.
yeah.
Yeah, those were a lot of fun to work with the different legislators on. For anyone that,
And I heard great things back from the legislators. They really enjoyed doing them. So that may be a recurring feature for us. So in addition to it live, there's nothing better than coming with a group of people to Springfield, but I think it'd be a nice combination to continue to do both.
absolutely. And for anyone who wants to watch the Capitol Conference at home videos, those are available on the Illinois Realtors website. Julie, I just want to thank you for your time.
Oh, absolutely.
It's been fantastic. I hope to see you again in person soon here.
Indeed. We all miss that.
Well, thanks, Julie. We'll see you soon.
Okay, thank you so much. And thanks for your time. And I appreciate it. And I would just, my final word to everyone is to just keep checking the Illinois Realtors website. The COVID-19 breaking news was so great, but we're going to pivot into, moving forward from, and we want to keep everyone current and apprised of breaking news on all levels and all fronts. So I would just encourage people to keep their eyes open and check that website and the local website frequently.
Agreed. Thank you, Julie.
Okay. Thanks, John.